Hi everyone, I'm Anya Parampil and this is Redlines. Honduras and its neighbors are reeling in the aftermath of two Category 4 hurricanes which ravaged Central America back to back. To discuss the impact of the storms, Hurricane Eta and Iota, as well as the varying government responses in the region, I'm joined now by Gerardo Torres. He's the International Secretary for the Libre Party in Honduras and a friend of the Grayzone. Welcome to Redlines, Gerardo.
Hi, Anja. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the invitation. And it's always a pleasure to be with the Grayzone.
Well, I'm happy to speak with you, but very worried about the situation in Honduras. Let's begin by discussing the current picture. You've just returned to Tegucigalpa, the capital, after traveling all around the country, trying to collect supplies and deliver aid. What did you see during your travels?
Well, there's a lot of people that have been affected. We're talking about thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Hondurans. There's very little news about what's going on the West, mainly because most of the maquilas, that is like the companies, the factories, and the production infrastructure is in the Sula Valley and the Awan Valley. So all the attention is in the north part and the northwestern part of Honduras. The west part of Honduras, the one that is right near Guatemala and El Salvador in the southwest of Honduras, that is really poor, indigenous, and campesinos, they don't have as much attention by the media. So there's a lot of people that are incommunicated. Congressmen and women of the Libre Party are doing a really huge effort to bring some food and some clothes and some help because mostly of those communities are incommunicated. So what you have to do is that you have to travel outside Honduras to El Salvador or to Guatemala and then go back because the roads in Honduras most are destroyed. The bridges, for example, were taken down by the rivers that grew in a really high proportion. So we have many people that lost their houses, but many people, hundreds of thousands of people that are incommunicated communities, complete communities that have no access for food or for any service. We're trying to bring that service from Guatemala and El Salvador back to the mountains in the southwestern part of the territory.
And what has the government, led by President Juan Orlando Hernandez, done to respond to this humanitarian catastrophe?
Well, the thing is that we have to say that Honduras is a profoundly neoliberal country. So we have a government that for the last 11 years after the coup d'etat in 2009 has been reducing completely many of the services and the rights that the government supposedly had to guarantee to the citizens are now under the private companies' control. So you have a government that has really low capacity to help people and to react and to act when there's a catastrophe, when there's an urgency and an emergency. And on the other hand, you have also a government that it has not the support of the majority of the population, that has lost two elections, 2013 and 2017, and that only reason why they stay in power is because they steal those elections. They have the support of the United States Embassy and the Southcom, that is the Southern Command of the U.S. Army, that is based its headquarters here in Honduras. And the third is because they have a lot of budget put on the military forces that are the ones that control any uprising or any rebellion from the citizenship. That we have been in the streets for 11 years. We have won two elections, but the government, with the support of the United States and with a lot of money to the military forces, stays in power. So you have a government that is really small, that has really small capacity to react, and you have a military force that is mainly budget it's to control the population. So when you have a catastrophe, we have, for example, communities that were 72 hours or even more in the roof of their houses waiting for some support, and you didn't have any support nor from the military or the police forces in Honduras. What people had to do was to rent small boats and go and rescue the people. But you didn't have any support by the military, by ships, boats, or helicopters that you. Well, we saw that in Nicaragua and Guatemala. We didn't that in Honduras. People had to rent boats to go and save family members or people of the community. Many of the communities, what had to do was to wait until water had gone enough uh, below what it was when the hurricane hit, and then reach some ground swimming or improvising ways to travel. And you have a lot of people that are currently disappeared that we believe are dead, but there's no official record on communities that are right now named as disappeared, that are people that the floods and the rivers just took them away, and there's no report of them. So it's a really uh, sad time in Honduras. We have never seen something like two hurricanes impacting us in less than 15 days in the between. This is a direct consequence and impact of climate change. We've been saying for the last 15 years that Honduras, without being one of the countries that is producing the effects of climate change, is one of the countries that is going to receive the mostly impacts of climate change. We're a really poor country with really bad infrastructure, with a little corrupt government, with the support of the United States. And when you add all this, then you have a catastrophe as the one we're seeing right now, with two hurricanes, with no support for the people, with a government that is more worried of what is gonna be said about them than what they're really doing. And just like a news, a urgent news that is right now, the Hernandez government is trying to use this catastrophe to give them 1 or 2 more years in term. We have elections in November of 2021. Their numbers are at their lowest. Not even the United States, with all their frauds and with all their support and with all their military, could guarantee another term for Hernandez in the National Party. And now what they're saying is this hurricane is really complicating things in Honduras, and we should think about postponing elections. So this is what we face as a country, as a citizenship. We're facing a government that does nothing for the people, and that stole a lot of money that was supposedly going to be used for COVID-19, and that is now stealing the money that they're getting from international cooperation to supposedly support the people that were affected by the hurricanes Eta and Iota. And we know that the shelters, they don't even have food. We're bringing food, we're bringing clothes because the government is not doing that. So there's a saying in Honduras that only the people save the people, because we don't have a government. We don't have no one we can go to for ask for support. It's something that comes from us, from the citizenship, and we're trying to do our best to help those that lost everything and that have been more impacted by these hurricanes.
I know your party, Libre, is organizing to provide relief to people in need. How are you doing that? And give viewers a little background. What exactly is the Libre Party?
Well, the Libre Party is the son of the National Resistance Front. When the coup d'etat in 2009 took away President Manuel Zelaya because he was proposing the people a constitutive assembly, not with him at the head of this because he was leaving power, but he was leaving it built for the next government. He made this election day on June 28th of 2009, when people had to decide in Honduras if we wanted a new constituency, a new constitution, if we wanted a new constitution or not. Of course, the numbers were really high for yes, as we saw it right now in Chile. 80-20 in Chile. Probably in Honduras, it would be the same or even more. People wanted a new constitution, wanted to change this constitution that was created by the United States in 1980 in the heart of the Cold War and the triumph of the Nicaraguan Sandinistas revolution, and with the uprising of the Salvadoran and Guatemalan revolution, they created a constitution in Honduras in 1980 that was built to control military control the region, to bring neoliberalism, and to fight these revolutions with a very conservative capitalism way of seeing things, very close religion and capitalism, and that's our constitution. So in 2009, when President Zelaya said it's time to create something new, something different, this is not working on Honduras, was already then the second most poor country after Haiti. Now we're ahead of Haiti. We're the poorest country in American continent. Um, but in 2009, he presented this option. We were to vote if we wanted a new constitution or not. That day, the United States, with a recently empowered Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State, back up a coup, the first coup in the 2000 era, the new century, and that coup installed a military government, then created a fictional democratic government that is the one that is still at the head of the Honduran government. So we created, as a response, something that we call the National Resistance Front. And then in 2012, that National Resistance Front created a political party that is called the Libre Party, that is currently the biggest political force in Honduras, that has won 2 elections. But as I said before, because of the military, the United States support, and the Honduran business class that pays a lot of money to kill people and to torture and to fight people in the streets, have staying power even though they have lost 2 elections. The OAS said that the 2017 Honduran elections were the worst elections that they have ever seen in the history of Latin America, and that's a lot to say. And even Almagro said that the elections should have been repeated, but because of the support of the United States Embassy in Tegucigalpa, it wasn't. And the National Party, that is the minority party of Honduras, it stayed in government. So the Libre Party is a social and political expression of the Honduran people wishes and desires and political objectives. And we now are, as I said, the principal political force, but we're also a social force. We have connections with the teachers movement, the worker movement, the indigenous movement. Berta Cáceres, for example, is one of the founders of the Libre Party, and we have Garifuna movement. And we have the Libre Party is a political party, but it has a strong social expression. So we're trying to use that capacity, that organization, that structure that we have in the country to try to help the people that have been affected by the hurricanes. It's not easy. We don't have the budget of the Honduran state. We don't have the budget of the government, but we're trying to put together all these kinds of efforts that we have, that people are trying to do. We're gathering food, we're gathering clothes all around Honduras, and then taking those clothes and food to the shelters. We are telling people that it's really difficult because if you send things to Honduran, they have to go through the Honduran government, and well, then those things disappeared, are stolen, because the National Party is corrupt. It's a organization that is related to drug trafficking, but it's also related to corruption, and it's a criminal structure. It's what you should understand as organized crime. That's the National Party of Honduras. So we're receiving some money from that. We also have a lot of collectives of the Libre party of the Hondurans that live in the United States and Spain. So they're also sending money. We're buying things. For example, tomorrow we're going to buy with some of the money that we gathered with the people in the United States. We're going to buy milk, uh, powdered milk, for the little young kids, boys and girls that are in the shelters. We're going to focus because we're like taking a record on what the things that we have and what the things that are needed, and we're now needing milk, so we're going to put our efforts to buy that, and we have been also using money to buy medicine and to buy. If you see, for example, San Pedro Sula, that is the second biggest city in Honduras, it's a destroyed zone, and there's a lot of shelters, and we're trying to help those people. But now we also have to help the people in the West. So we're trying to do our best, and unfortunately, the international cooperation, if Germany or Mexico or whoever wants to send things, those things go through the Honduran government, and that's a problem. So we're trying to avoid as much as we can the Honduran government, trying to get people together to help other people, and as long as we're doing it, it has worked uh, in some ways, not as much as we wanted, but it's something that we are doing for those thousands of families that have lost everything and that are now in shelters and trying to find something to eat, not knowing where they're going to live after this. Uh, for example, we have known that many of the shelters that the Honduran government has announced that they have created, many of them are already closed, and we don't know what happened to those people. Right now we're like in the middle of many things that it's really a very complicated situation. It's a humanity crisis, and it would be good to have support. For example, we don't have as much support of the United Nations because they don't want to get in trouble with a government that is backed up by the United States. So Honduras is not declaring a humanity crisis zone that it should have been declared 5 years ago when we had started seeing thousands of people exiled in Honduras with the caravans. But that is a political manifestation. And because of the support of the United States Embassy, this government is really protected, and many people that know what things are right now in Honduras prefer not to say. And if you can see, you don't hear much of this in the big media corporations because it's one point it's not interesting for the international media, but it also there's a lot of control of what is being said of what's going on in Honduras by the United States.
How can viewers in the United States and around the world help provide aid in Honduras right now? Since you already explained it's difficult to assist in aid efforts that are going directly to the government because we can't have confidence that that'll actually be distributed fairly and won't be distributed through a corrupt network. How can people sitting at home now aid your efforts?
Well, there's something that they created that well I'll try to, because there's a lot of like crowdfunding.
I'll have you send me those links and we can put them in the description of this video so people can take a look as they hear what you have to say if they're interested in helping. How does the situation in Honduras right now compare to that of its neighbor, Nicaragua, which has a completely different system of government?
Well, I think that the main difference is that Nicaragua has a government. Honduras, we don't have a government. We I don't know how many. I imagine the people that see the Grayzone and see your programs have a lot of knowledge in history. This is Honduras is like the Saigon government in Vietnam when you had the war, the United States had the war with Vietnam. The Saigon government was always a fake government. It's what the really thing was going on is that you had the United States military forces fighting against the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong that was led by Ho Chi Minh. But the United States created this government, that it was a fake government in Saigon, to say that it was the fight between the two Vietnam, the North Vietnam and the South Vietnam. But it wasn't real. People had names like the president or the vice president of the Congress, but they mainly just were given those names by the United States military forces. So after the coup, the Honduran government has been disappearing year by year because the people that have those offices are not really put there by a democratic process or by the will of the people. They're put there by the business class and the United States interests in the region and in Honduras. So when you have a hurricane, you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. You don't have the people to do it. You don't have the capacity or the budget or the knowledge or the interest to do it. And in Nicaragua, for example, just to put some examples, because of the pressure of the tourists of the tourism companies or business or industry, Honduras had been closed for 7 months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So you had these big hotels that were like pressuring the government to create this whole week holiday so people had the chance to go to the hotels and give them some money. So we were fighting against that decision because it was absurd. It was a stupidity to after 7 months of trying to care for people and trying to stop the spread of COVID and coronavirus, give them a week to go to vacations. Honduras, we haven't flattened the curve, not even once. Other countries have had 2 waves or 3 waves. We're in the first wave because there is no public health in Honduras. We only have 3 big public hospitals all around Honduras. So what can 3 hospitals attend 9 million people? It's absurd. So we know that, and we're trying to do our best to stop the spread of the virus. And I think the government said we're going to have a holiday week. Uh, but they have bad luck. They have bad luck, and we have them as government. So we also have bad luck. Um, the thing is that the week when this holiday was going to happen, it was the same week that ETA struck Honduras. So 3 days before, the Florida Hurricane Observer told Honduras, Nicaragua, and Guatemala, there's a hurricane coming your way, you should start evacuating people. Nicaragua did that. Nicaragua knew that the hurricane was coming 3 days ahead, so they started moving people, started preparing themselves. Guatemala did something like that. El Salvador did something like that. Honduras didn't do nothing. The hurricanes hit Nicaragua on Tuesday, and Honduran government, there's a press conference that you can see in YouTube that is of that Monday, the day before, and the Honduran president and the Honduran minister of attending disasters and natural emergency said that probably the hurricane wouldn't pass from Nicaragua. Like it would be the first time that something like that happened. The hurricane disappears one day in one day, and they encouraged people that everything was going to be okay, and they had to go to the hotels and spend their money. Just remember to use a mask, and everything is gonna be okay. So you had no evacuations, you had no attentions, and then you had a lot of people moving to the Caribbean when the hurricane impacted Honduras. Then you have thousands of people disappeared, and thousands of people affected, and thousands of people that lost their houses and everything. So what's the difference between Nicaragua and Honduras? Well, the Nicaraguan government is forced to answer for the people and to the people, and also because it's a socialist government, and that makes it even stronger, the the um, the demand of the people to be heard and the government to respond. In Honduras, on the other hand, you have the most neoliberal government that you can imagine in this region. So the government responds to the in private interest. And if the private interest said, I want a week that so people can come to my hotels and spend money, then that was what are you going to do? And when you don't have the resources or the capacity or the interest, then this happens. So as I said, there were people that waited 72 hours, 3 days, in the roof of their houses to be rescued. And there are many other people that died waiting. And you talk with the people in shelters, and they said, after 3 days waiting for the Honduran government, we started paying private to rescue people. And 15 days after that, we had the Iota hurricane. So ETA destroyed the Caribbean coast, and then Iota destroyed the northwest and the west of Honduras. So the best way to understand the difference between Nicaragua and Honduras is that in Nicaragua you can hear the statistics of how many people were affected, how many money they lost, and what are they going to do to that situation. They have a plan. They have an idea of what they're going to do. In Honduras, you don't have statistics. You still at this moment you don't know exactly how many people were affected, how many shelters there are, how many people are attended. For example, today, early today, a couple of hours ago, one of our congresswomen, Marcela, precisely the daughter of Berta Cáceres, reported that she had reached a community in San Francisco de Palaca, that is in the North Indigenous Mountains in the southwest of Honduras. That community had been already a week without any communications because all the bridges and all the ways are blocked or destroyed, and she managed to get there with some food and some clothes, and that is going to be a life-changing action for a community, for an entire community. So that's difference. You're you have in one country a government, a socialist government that responds to the people, and on the other thing you have this fake thing the United States states keeps in power uh, because they don't want a socialist party as the Libre party to gain control of the Honduran government. So instead of having a socialist party, they have this, and that says a lot of what the United States cares for the people in Central America or Latin America.
What is the situation in Guatemala where demonstrators actually set fire to the country's parliament on November 21st while protesting a budget widely viewed as pro business? Might that unrest spread to Honduras?
Well, um, 3 months ago, we started a campaign in Honduras that had like the main message was "Where's the money? ¿Dónde está el dinero?" And that spread to Guatemala, and then they started asking also, "Where's the money?" Um, the One of the difference that you have between Guatemala and Honduras is that Guatemala, even though all the history that have of violence in the military, Honduras is the one that right now has this repressive and violent military forces and police forces. So when we demonstrate and when we go to the streets, the action against us is really violent. We are very happy to see this uprising in Guatemala. We hope they take out Yamate. The Yamate is very similar to what we have in the National Party. It believes in repression. Is a very corrupt government, and it also serves blindly to the interests of the United States in the region. So we hope that they take them down as they took down in 2015 Otto Perez Molina. In 2015, Guatemala was in the streets, and Honduras was. We were also in the streets, and in 2015 they drove away the government of Otto Perez Molina, and they created they put Jimmy Morales. But the thing is that they took away Otto Perez Molina. What they did in Honduras was that the United States came here and talked in behalf of the Honduran government and created this fake thing that's called the MASI. There was a OAS investigation unit to stop corruption that didn't stop nothing, that they put nobody in jail. And Guatemala took down Yamatei, and in Honduras they lived and protected Juan Orlando Hernandez, even though the DEA knew that Hernandez was a drug leader, or the leader of a drug cartel, and that a year after they were going to capture his brother. But they didn't do it because in 2017 they were going to elections against us, and they knew that we were going to win. And if they attacked or pointed out Hernandez, there was no way that they stopped the Libre Party to get to power. So that's another difference. They have a lot of interest on maintaining Libre and the socialist movement without getting to power in Honduras, and they're willing to do many things that they don't do in the region. What is the difference between Honduras and Guatemala? If you take down Otto Perez Molina, you don't have a leftist movement with the strength to take over power in Guatemala. If you take Otto Perez Molina, then you have a Jimmy Morales. If you take Yamatei, what you're going to have in Guatemala is another version of the right-wing political forces that are the strongest one in the country. What's the problem of Honduras is that if you do an action against this leftist, rotten, corrupt, drug trafficking criminals that call themselves the Nationalist Party, then you have a leftist movement that is surely going to get to power. So that's like the wages that you have in Central America.
And Honduras has the largest military base, U.S. military base in the region, something which the United States really would like to hold on to. This is not the first Hurricane Gerardo to devastate Honduras. How did Hurricane Mitch, which hit in 1998, have a lasting impact on the political situation in the country?
Well, Hurricane Mitch was, I believe, the waking moment of a generation. Honduras had lived many decades believing and feeling itself as the best friend of the United States. There were a lot of political and economical initiatives to maintain Honduras a little bit above the region, to try and to stop any uprising in the neighbors. As you said, we have the main United States military base in Latin America. This is the headquarters of the Southern Command. It's located 80 kilometers off Tegucigalpa. I just passed in front of it. It's something enormous.
It's like the size of a small city or town.
Yes, and it's the head, and it's like you have Marine troops, Bravo troops, and well, it's a valley. It's the half of a valley controlled by the United States military, and it was created in the military base of Honduras, that's called Palmerola, was installed in Honduras the same year they created the constitution that we're trying to change. So you can see that there's a clearly connection between both. The military presence and the economic way of seeing Honduras are the same thing, where an action of the United States in the region to fight against Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, a couple of years later, Panama, and all the Caribbean and the north part of Latin America. So that's the reason they protect so much that base, and that constitution is part of their control strategy in the region. So um, Hurricane Mitch that impacted Honduras in October of 1998 showed things. First is that we were a very poor country. Uh, People had no capacity to move their things or to go away. Like you see in other countries, for example, you see people that lose everything and then they have the capacity in a couple of years to have something bought again and to have a house or to rent a house. What happened in Honduras was that those poor people that the media were never in covering or showing lost the little things that they had, and then you had Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula and some other main cities with gigantic shelters, and then you had 3 months, and then you had 4, 5, 6, a year, and people were still in shelters because they had no chance to find another place to live. And those shelters, they then became small cities inside the cities, like these really poor and violent environments were the main ways or places where maras exploded. You had thousands of families living all together in really poor conditions and really one close to another, and explosion and violence and crime exploded in those small cities inside the cities. The other thing that you had was that for the first time in Honduran history, you started seeing hundreds of thousands of people fleeing the country to the United States mainly and to Spain, some of them. So you had what you had before, what you had Salvadorians and you had Guatemalans and you had Mexican people trying to illegally enter the United States. There were pretty few Hondurans, but after Hurricane Mitch, Hondurans became the majority of the people that tried to enter illegally the United States. So Hurricane Mitch destroyed the economy of the country, empowered people as we never imagined, increased migration, increased violence, brought the maras, but it also brought the awakening of social movements, political movements. In the May 1st of 2000, you had the creation of the Bloque Popular, that you can trace it directly to the Libre Party. The Bloque Popular was a social platform that gathered everyone in Honduras that were willing to fight to change this country, to change. It was the first massive anti-neoliberal movement in Honduras. The Bloque Popular became the national resistance coordinator in 2006, and in 2009, after the coup, it was the National Resistance Front, and in 2012, it was the Libre Party. So that failure of the neoliberal system to give us some support of Hurricane Mitch can be directly traced to the Libre Party of 2020, that we now have the capacity and the organizations to help people. We didn't have that in 1998. We have it now. And in front of us, we have a government. The United States has put us in front of us since 2009 to avoid this movement to raise to power. So that movement that was created after the Hurricane Mitch in 1998 should easily be empowered in this country since 2010 with a leftist, anti-neoliberal, and anti-imperialistic way of seeing ourselves. And the United States has supported an inefficient, corrupt, criminal organization that's called the National Party as the bloc. and to stop Libre. So the people that are right now with any support that are sleeping in the floors, that have no food, that are piled up and all together in really small and unhealthy shelters, that is a direct consequences of the United States policies in Central America, specifically in Honduras, because they have put a puppeteer, a puppet government to stop us, to stop the leftist movement, and that puppet government wasn't able and is not going to be able to give any response or any answer to all those hundreds of thousands of Hondurans that have been affected by Hurricane Eta and Hurricane Iota.
Well, finally, then, Gerardo, how might Hurricanes Eta and Iota impact Honduras in the long term? You're talking about the government of Juan Orlando Hernandez discussing the postponement of elections next year. Will the people stand for that, or will this catastrophe breathe new life into the movement resisting this government?
People are not going to allow that. So you have two possible um, ways that we could go in Honduras. The National Party knows that because of their lack of action, because of the corruption, because of the way they have handled coronavirus, and now the way they have handled these two hurricanes, that's it. They're out. People are willing to vote in it. People are the right-wing people that have lost their companies, that have lost uh, money, are willing to vote for the left just to stop the National Party to stay in power. So they know that this is only going to get worse for the next year. And they know that the way we have been answering people have gained us sympathy, even of those people that were afraid of the left and the socialists. People that see CNN or Telemundo or Univision that are all day long said lies about what the socialist governments are. And even those people that have always been afraid of the left, afraid of socialism, are now seeing the difference between what they do and what we do. So if they don't stay in power by strength, then they're out. And then we have a chance in 2022 to start something new, a new government, a new political option and possibility for Honduras. If they stay in power, they have to do it by strength. And if they do it by strength, then we're heading to the worst political crisis that we have yet seen in Honduras. And we're talking about Honduras, that we always have political crisis, or we have always had in the last 11 years after the coup. So if they stay in power by force, then we're going to face them and fight them, and we're going to a political crisis. And then we'll have to see the new Biden-Harris administration has to do, because one fraud was allowed and supported by the Obama government in 2013, and the other fraud was allowed and supported by the Trump administration in 2017. So for Hondurans, they're the same. They have now been announcing themselves that they're going to be different and they're going to do things different. If the National Party wants to stay in power by strength and force, we're going to have a political convulsion. We're going to have a nationwide rebellion, and we're going to have a profound human rights crisis. And then we're going to see what the Biden-Harris administration does. We're prepared. We don't trust them, and we are not expecting nothing from the United States. People in Honduras are prepared to do whatever it takes to take them out of power. If we can do it voting, then we're going to vote and take them out. And if not, we're not going to allow another another term of the national. It's impossible. We can't. People are literally starving because of the National Party and all the money they have stolen. And this has a strong uh, responsibility, the United States. And it's time that people start understanding the consequences of the United States international policies in countries of Honduras. Those people that are now in the worst situations maybe don't understand it completely, most of them, because what they want right now is to get food for the children. But if you see it from a little distance, then you understand that this is a direct consequences of the scare of the fright that the United States has. Sorry, my little dog just attacked me. um, this is the a consequence of the United States. We have never asked nothing for the United States, but to not mess in the Honduran business or in the Honduran interests and policies. If they don't support and they don't maintain the National Party, then there's no way they could have another term in Honduras.
Well, I know we'll be in touch next year and throughout the rest of 2020, monitoring the situation and seeing how this plays out. Gerardo, where can viewers also follow you or Libre to stay up to date on the situation in Honduras?
Well, La Libre Party, you can find Partido Libre Honduras on Facebook and also on Twitter. And you can also follow former President Manuel Zelaya. He's very strong in Twitter. You can find him as Mel Zelaya R, at Mel Zelaya R in Twitter. And you can also read some of the independent media. We have Criterio .hn, we have Notibomba, and we have Libertad Digital. You can see in all of the three of them all the things that the Honduran people are doing to try to support each other and try to help us go ahead and not being stopped by this crisis. That's one of the worst we have seen, but we're going to manage to move forward with the support and the help of all the citizenship and all the Honduran people together.
And again, I will link to websites where viewers can donate or get in support for aid efforts in Honduras right now. It's very critical, as Gerardo's explained, because the government is virtually non-existent. I'll have those in the description of this video and this podcast. Gerardo Torres, thank you so much for your time, and please stay in touch. I hope the situation gets better and that Honduras does return to democracy next year.
Thank you very much, Andia. Saludos and abrazos to all the people of Grayzone. And we'll stay in touch. And we hope that you keep on your good work. And we'll try to do our best from here.